Hello friends, welcome to the Tomato Blues kitchen. Today we are going to be baking an easy peasy banana bread with ingredients that are already available in your pantry. I'm also going to be sharing some tips and tricks for beginner bakers, so make sure you watch the video till the end. Come on, let's now get started baking our banana bread. To begin with, we will first prep our pan. I'm using a loaf pan and I'm rubbing a blob of butter gently onto the pan, making sure that the corners are also greased thoroughly. This is just to make sure that the pan and the bread do not stick to each other after the bread is baked. Now, we will line this pan with some parchment paper. I'm using unbleached parchment paper, but you can also use white color butter paper to line your pan. Once you have lined your pan, let's preheat the oven. I'm going to be preheating the oven at 180 degrees Celsius for 10 to 12 minutes. This setting entirely depends upon your oven, so please adjust accordingly. Once we have begun the preheating process, let's measure out our ingredients. I am using a digital weighing scale to measure my ingredients today. It is very important to measure your ingredients correctly while baking. If you do not have a digital weighing scale, please use standardized measuring cups and spoons to measure your ingredients. If you're measuring flour with a measuring cup, then scoop out the flour and level it off with a knife to measure your flour correctly. I'm using 1.25 cups of all-purpose flour, that is 150 grams of all-purpose flour, to bake our banana bread today. Once we have measured our flour correctly, let's add the leavening agents, that is those ingredients that are required for the bread to rise. I'm going to be adding 5 grams of baking soda, that is 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 3/4 of a teaspoon baking powder, which is 4 grams approximately. Along with this, a 3/4 of a teaspoon salt. Salt is important for all sweet bakes to round out the flavors nicely. Now that we've added all this, let's use a balloon whisk and mix it well so that the soda, the baking powder and the salt is evenly distributed inside the flour. We will now be adding the sweetener. I'm using brown sugar. You can also use white sugar. I've taken 3/4 of a cup brown sugar today, which measures 165 grams. Now let's use a balloon whisk and mix this well. You can also use white sugar in place of brown sugar. Now that this is done, let's prep the fruits and nuts which we will be using. I'm using 60 grams of raisins along with 50 grams of slivered almonds. We are now going to toss these both gently with the flour. This is to make sure that the almonds and the raisins do not sink to the bottom after baking. I'm using a spatula to toss them in flour and coat them evenly. So now our dry mixture is ready. We will get started with our wet mixture. For our wet mixture, I'm cracking 2 brown eggs in a deep and wide-mouthed mixing bowl. Make sure that your mixing bowl is large enough to avoid splatters. You can also use white eggs for this recipe. Now to this, I'm adding 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and now we will be whisking this gently to make sure that the yolk, the egg whites and the vanilla is mixed properly. This is not going to be intensive whisking. It's just going to be a light, gentle whisk for about 30 to 45 seconds. And this is how it looks after the vanilla and eggs have been whisked. We will now be adding the fat required for this recipe. I am using 3/4 of a cup sunflower oil. Any neutral flavored vegetable oil will also work. Now we are going to whisk the oil and eggs together so that the eggs and the oil is well incorporated. This took me about 2 to 3 minutes, and this is how it looks. Now let's get on to adding our bananas. I'm using 2.5 medium-sized overripe Cavendish bananas. In case your bananas are small, please use 3. In case they are big, please use 2. Now we are going to use a potato masher and make sure that the bananas are mashed to a really smooth puree without any lumps. This is very important in baking a good banana bread because lumps in your banana means the banana bread will not be baked evenly. This took me about 2 to 3 minutes of good mashing, and this is how it looks. At this point, we will now be adding the flour in 3 batches. I'm adding the first batch of the mixed and ready dry mixture. Now I'm not going to be whisking this, but I'm going to be using a spatula and gently folding the dry mixture over the wet mixture. Make sure you do not whisk it using a balloon whisk at this point, and also do not stir it too much, otherwise your bread will be dense and the crumb will not be light and airy. I'm using the second batch of dry mixture today, and again I'm using my spatula and I'm going to fold in the dry mixture into the wet batter. You just have to make sure that there are no streaks of flour seen visibly on the surface of the batter. Now we are going to be adding the final batch and again mix it gently. I'm not going to stir this like how I would stir a soup or a curry, but instead mix it gently using my spatula. Now that this is done, get a balloon whisk and whisk it for like about 1 to 2 times gently, and our batter is done. Let's pour this into our prepared loaf pan. We are going to fill it only to 3/4. If you overfill your pan, the batter will overflow. Your bread will not bake evenly then, so do not overfill. Let's add 2 tablespoons of chocolate chips and 1.5 tablespoons of slivered almonds. Walnuts will also work as a good topping for banana bread. We are now going to be baking this banana bread in our prepared and preheated oven for about 45 minutes. This is how our batter looks, and this is how it looks after baking for 45 minutes. Let's do a skewer test. Let's insert a toothpick, and if it comes out clean, yes, it is clean, the bread is done. Now let's wait for this to become a little lukewarm before taking it out from the pan. Look how soft and fluffy it is. And now that it is lukewarm, let's turn it upside down and remove it from the pan. It's very important that you let the bread cool before taking it out from the pan, otherwise it will stick to the pan and the bread will also break. Let's peel off the parchment paper now and see how beautifully baked our banana bread is. Use a sharp serrated knife to slice your bread. Do not make the same mistake like me, my dear friends. And that is how our beautiful soft banana bread looks. The only banana bread recipe that you'll need. Thank you for watching, friends. We'll be back again with another recipe soon.